Hello and welcome to today's class on GS Paper 1 Test 5 discussion. Let's start the discussion. We'll go from the question number 6 and on to question number 1. The first question or the question number 6 was whether the incident of riot and communal violence are on rise in country, and if so, the reason thereof or the reason therefore. See, first of all, let's understand the meaning of the word communal violence. Communal violence is nothing but a violence against any particular community. Now, when I say a community, it can be a religious community, it can be a community which is based upon the caste, etc., or any linguistic community. Hence, this is what we call communal violence. Please do not take communal violence with respect to only religion. Communal violence can be also with respect to the caste, can also be with respect to community of a particular religion, or sorry, a community of a particular ethnicity, or can be with respect to a community of a particular language. Now, the following reasons for the communal violence and riots are as follows. Again, as we know that we have always we have to go with the IBC, where I is the introduction, B is the body, and C is the conclusion. Within this introduction, first of all, let's define what is communal violence. Then we'll go for the following are the reasons for the communal violence and riots are as follows. First is that the social reason. What is the social reason? See, prevalence of illiteracy as a result of the as a result, the constitutional values are overshadowed by narrow outlook. See, what are these constitutional values? The constitutional values are basically the values of secularism, the values of promoting universal brotherhood. Now, India is a country where only 74% approximately are literate. Hence, as a result of this, a large number of people are illiterate. They do not have the rational capacity to differentiate between what is wrong and what is right. Even the persons who are also literate, they are, for example, you have politicians who knowingly spread the communal violence. They also, those who are literate, they also choose to behave like illiterate, and because they cannot rationally analyze or differentiate between what is wrong and what is right. This is number one. That is your social reason. Next is your economic reason. See, first of all, is the prevalence of poverty. See, remember that once a region which is prevalent where there is prevalence of poverty, people can be easily biased to take up on activities which results in communal violence. For example, let us consider a region where people do not have food, where people lack wealth, or where people lack resources. In such region, what happens is that people who are rich or the people who are politically strong, they influence these people to to commit political or to commit communal atrocities against another community, as a result of which they can gain the popularity, and for this purpose they provide them with money. Monetary support is also given to them. Hence, economic reason is also remains one that keeps, because of the poverty also there is communal violence. Remember that. Next, political reasons. Political reasons is the hate speech. Again, it's a vote bank politics. Remember that communal riots are basically caused, or the communal riots are basically one of the basic things that politicians apply to capture the votes. Remember that in 1992, the Babri Masjid issues was also one such thing. Many a times, this political violence also takes place through hate speech. Hate speech means where there is a means where the propagation of hatred against a particular community. For example, that love jihad. The love jihad was one such example of the hatred or the hate speech. Next, we have the administrative reason. Remember that one thing that law and order is the biggest role of the administration. Now, administration needs to maintain law and order through its machinery. What is its machinery? Its machinery is none other than the police. Now, in India, what happens is that the police force is inadequate. That is only 100 per lakh population, whereas it should be 222 per lakh population. Next, recently the NCRB report also says that the NCRB report, which was stated as the Crime in India 2017 report, it says that though the communal riot incidents have come down in India, but the number of victims of communal violence has increased. So basically, from this report itself, what do we analyze is that though the incidence of the communal rioting has actually come down, but the number of incidents that are taking place right now are quite big, and the number of victims are also more. Means even if we have 10 communal riots with 100 victims, it's saying that even one communal riot right now is getting 1000 victims. So this particularly shows that the number of communal riots or the communal violence has come down, but the number of victims has increased. Please quote this report in your conclusion part. This is important. Or if you want, you can even quote this as your introduction part. No issues with that. Let's move on to the next question. The next question was, explain how Indian Constitution protects the minority. Now remember that the basic source for the Indian Constitution is your Lakshmikant, which has been very well explained. Now, how should I start this? Again, I have the formula of IBC. And within this question, let me mark the keyword. The keyword over here is minority. First, I think I need to define minority. Now, remember that though the Indian Constitution doesn't describe minority, still its provisions safeguards the minority. How? Now, provisions of the Indian Constitution can be implicit and explicit. Implicit means indirect and explicit means direct. The implicit means every person, including the minority, enjoy such rights by virtue of being the Indian citizen. Remember that all the fundamental rights, that is from Article 14 to Article 29, to every fundamental right, is being enjoyed by every minority community by virtue of being the citizen of India. Next, explicit means which are exclusive for your minority people. Now, within this explicit, we have your Article 30. Number one, we also have the DPSP, which says that for the protection of their rights, for the promotion of the mother tongue. Again, we have the Special Commission for the Linguistic Minority. I hope you can easily take down the articles with respect to this. It's directly available in the Lakshmikant. I would suggest you for the Indian Constitution to please focus on Lakshmikant and do not go for any other sources. But yes, answer writing needs to have a style. Hence, even with these provisions of the Constitution, I have divided it into explicit and implicit. Next, write about the insurgency and other key issues of Northeast India. Now, over here, the key word again is your insurgency. Now, remember that insurgency is nothing but the rebellion or the protest against the authority or the present day government is the basic definition of your insurgency. Now, Northeast, the insurgency basically started with 1947 India's freedom. The insurgency basically started because the northeast population there are the factions within the northeast wanted to have their own separate nation. One was that the Naga National Council, another was the Mizo National Front. Again, there was Ulfa in Assam. These were some of the major outfits that came out during the after the independence and during the post-independence period, which started a struggle in the Northeast. The Naga National Council was headed by AZ Fizo. After this, the death of Fizo, the Naga National Council has been divided into two parts, that is NSC and IM, that is Isak Movia, and next is your K, that is your Khaplan. India recently has signed the Naga Accord with this NSC and IM. As a result, they have decided to give down their weapon and to continue their agitation in a non-violent manner. But India has not come in agreement with this NSC and K. Rather, there has been a consistent conflict with this NSC and K. I hope you should remember that prior to the 2016, the surgical strike on Pakistan, we had already done a surgical strike in Myanmar on NSCNK. The NSCNK had attacked the Assam Rifles in the northeast. Hence, the Indian government responded by creating a first, that is, conducting the surgical strike in Myanmar against the NSCNK. This was the first surgical strike, even prior to the surgical strike of Pakistan. Now, understand what, see, basically, remember that you do not need to write all this. This is just for your information. Please do not write all this. And basically, you can start with this, that is your introduction of the insurgency, and then go for the body direct, the reason for the insurgency. See, the reason for the insurgency is demand of a separate nation, the separate nation of Nagaland. This was one of the biggest demand of the Naga National Council, and it is still a biggest demand of the NSC and K. that we want a separate nation of a Nagaland, not nation but a separate state, because recently they have changed the demand from a nation to a state. They want to be within India. Next is the lack of development. So when I say lack of development means there are the issues of poverty, there are issues of illiteracy, there are issues of absence of proper infrastructure within them, within the Northeast. There is absence of the manufacturing sector in the Northeast. This remains one of the biggest challenge. Next, what are the other problems? The other problems is ethnic conflict. Ethnic conflict, see, first of all, understand ethnicity. Ethnic means nothing but people belonging to a common religion, people belonging to a common language, people belonging to a common tribe. Northeast, there is ethnic conflict. Ethnic conflict is between your Kukis and your Naga. The Kukis live in your Manipur and your Nagas of the Nagaland. Nagas not just live in Nagaland, but they are well distributed within the Northeast. Almost within the Northeast, they are well distributed everywhere. Next. Again, there is a migrant issue. Now, with respect to migrant issue, most of you would know that the Rohingyas issue is one such issue or was the current issue. But prior to the Rohingya issue, there were other migrants, especially the Bangladeshi migrant who came and settled over here after 1971 Indo-Bangla War. And after that, again, we have the Chakmas, we have the Hajongs who have again settled over here in your Arunachal Pradesh and other parts. Now, this is one of the also the migrant issue remains one of the major issues, and for that only the Assam Accord is being conducted. Next, we have the drug trafficking. See, drug trafficking has two reasons. First of all, is that the lack of development is one reason because people do not have opportunity for income. Hence, they resort to drug trafficking as the most profitable source of income. Again, there is a problem of near proximity to the Golden Triangle. Remember that if this is your Northeast, then the Northeast is connected with your Southeast Asia. Within the Southeast Asia, we have the Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos, that is your Golden Triangle. That is where we have a whole lot of drugs that are being manufactured over there. Opium, and that is transported to India through the Northeast. And last but not least is your poverty. Poverty can go directly with the lack of development. Now, how should we write a conclusion? Remember that whenever we are writing a conclusion, the conclusion should always be optimistic. Optimistic means it must be positive in nature. It shows that this particular civil servant has a positive attitude. Hence, within this, we'd say that the establishment of the framework for the Naga Accord, it has been signed, as I said, with the NSCN IM, that is Isaac Movia. Again, we have the M donor. What is this M donor? That is nothing but an exclusive ministry for the development of the Northeast region. This exclusive ministry takes into development of every aspect of the Northeast region, that starting it from the infrastructure to the tourism to etc. to a whole lot of things. So this is what Indian government has been doing to put a check to the insurgency and other developmental issues that persist in the Northeast. Let's move on to the next question. Next question is give an account of the existing parallel economy in India. Measures taken to curb it and how far they have been effective. See, prior to understanding this, please understand what's the meaning of this parallel economy. We'll first start with the basics. See, if we have a particular economy that we call it as the Indian economy, then there are two sectors. One is your formal, another is your informal sector. Within the formal sector, why we call it formal sector? Because the income or the money that comes out of it is accounted for. We know how much is this particular sector that is generating income. But if I look at the informal sector, the problem with the informal sector is they are non-accounted. Means the income that comes out of this sector, it actually has it's neither it is taxed nor we know how much income actually comes out of here. Hence, the income that comes out over here is called black money. What is this black money? Black money is your unaccounted money. Now, understand this. See, even if there is a barber who is doing his who is cutting his hairs. Now think of it, the barber charges 10 rupees per individual, and he actually serves 1,000 people. So in a particular day, he's making an income of 10,000 rupees. Now he's not registered anywhere. Neither he is registered in the GST nor he is registered within the professional tax. And as a result of which, the particular amount of money that is come that the barber incomes or generates, we actually do not know how it is done. Again, within the informal economy, we have also sectors such as the drug trafficking. Again, we have prostitution. Again, we have the arms deals. These are also nothing but your informal economy that generates your black money. So basically, from this, you got that informal economy is nothing but your non-accounted. This is the economy where the income that is being generated is not accounted for. Next. What is our question? Give an account of the existing parallel economy. What is this parallel economy? This parallel economy is nothing but this particular economy or the informal economy where the income that is being generated is not accounted for. That is your parallel economy. In your introduction, you can write this. Basically, let us frame it up in a proper manner in the introduction that parallel economy is nothing but the economy where the income that is generated is not accounted for. Simple definition. Next. Next that key, it says that key, and measures taken to curb it. This is the second part of your question. What are the measures taken to curb it? First of all, we have collaboration with the international agencies such as the FATF under the OECD. Remember that FATF is the Financial Action Task Force under the OECD, Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. This is number one. Number two is that enactment of legislation such as the PMLA, that is Prevention of the Money Laundering Act. Next is that Keep Benami Property Act. Next is that bringing out the GST. Why the GST? So that the informal sector can join into the formal sector. Next, again, we have the KYC mandate to open bank accounts. Next, we have the process of demonetization. I hope you remember in 2016, this was the biggest exercise that was conducted by the government of India to tackle the black money issue. Next, how far this has been effective? See, the measures has been less effective because still 90% of the economy is in informal sector. And this is the biggest challenge to bring this economy into formal sector. And exactly what government is doing is that government is trying to bring this economy into that the informal economy into the formal economy with the help of the GST. This is number one. And again, government has also been trying to give them tax concessions. Government is also trying to give them loans. But again, government says that to avail all this facility, they need to be in the formal sector. Hence, the government is actually what it's basically doing is that it's trying to ease the doing of business. It's actually trying to ease the doing of business. Hence, so that more and more more and more more and more firms, more and more business in the informal economy could be brought back into the formal economy. I hope you got those. Next. The secular spirit of the constitution has not been able to maintain the communal harmony in true spirit. See, with this question, I would like to you be very straightforward with the IBC. In the introduction, you can write itself. See, in the introduction is that communal harmony in India has been disrupted because of the following reasons. Again, the social cause of the illiteracy, economic cause of the poverty, again administrative cause, that is the lack of police force. Again, we have the political cause. Last but not the least, it's the people's perception. What is this people's perception that I wanted to discuss? See, people's perception is that people have a very traditional outlook where they say that their their community or their religion is superior to other community or other religion. This is the simple thing. Or they simply say that our community is superior to any other existing community. Hence, this has been one of the major reasons why there exists a communal difference between the people, and hence this leads to the communal violence. I hope you got the I hope you got this. With respect to all this four, I think you can refer to the previous question that has been discussed. Next, cultural heritage and vandalism, steps taken by government to preserve it. See, this is quite easy. No need for this big thing. See, but all I want you to do is that you understand the meaning of this word cultural heritage. See, when I say heritage, heritage is nothing but inherited property by one generation from another. Means it is something that we are inheriting from one generation to another. When I say cultural heritage, it means that the culture that we have inherited from one generation to another. Now, what exactly is the culture that we have inherited? It could be idea, it could be custom, it could be social behavior, it could be our religion, sorry, it could be our tradition, etc. Now, vandalism is nothing but the destruction of CH. What is CH? It's a cultural heritage. Remember that within the cultural heritage, we also have our monuments. Monuments like your Taj Mahal, monuments like your Lingaraj temple, monuments like your Konark temple, monuments like your Agra fort, etc. These are nothing also but your cultural heritage. Next, what are the steps taken by the government of India? First of all, establishment of the ASI. See, basically remember that ASI was established in the pre-independence, and it has been none other than Lord Curzon had himself established this in the pre-independence period. Next is that adopt a heritage program. It has been initiated by the government of India, whereby the particular firms or the big industrial sectors can adopt a heritage. Next, that promotion of tourism. Remember that tourism promotion also helps in safeguarding our cultural heritage. Last but not least, it's the Antiquities Act of 1972. The Antiquities Act of 1972 not just preserves the antiques or the ancient monuments, but also penalizes the ones who tries to steal them or vandalizes them. I hope you got the answer with respect to this question. And basically, hence, you can see that the culture and within the conclusion. Now, let's come to the conclusion. Within the conclusion, you can see that the cultural heritage of India is very rich and very diverse, and hence, the steps taken by its government to protect the cultural heritage is significant. I hope you have a clarity of this question. Even if you have any doubts, you can still ask us on our Telegram channel. Thank you.